What if the thing breaking you is the thing building you? Pain has a reputation it doesn't deserve. We've been taught that strength looks calm, confident, unshaken. That if you were truly strong, you wouldn't feel this much. You wouldn't hurt this deeply. But that belief quietly destroys people, because it turns every hard moment into shame. Pain does not mean you are weak. Pain means you are alive, paying attention, and being shaped. Think about it. Every meaningful change you've ever gone through came wrapped in discomfort. Growth in the body requires strain. Growth in the mind requires confusion. Growth in character requires pressure. Yet when emotional pain arrives, we treat it as an enemy instead of a teacher. Pain is not random. It doesn't show up without a reason. It arrives when something in your life is misaligned, unfinished, or asking for your attention. Ignoring it doesn't make it disappear, it just makes it louder later. Many people never learn this. They spend years fighting their own emotions, telling themselves to get over it, to be stronger, to stop feeling so much. But all that does is create resistance, and resistance turns pain into suffering. There's a difference between pain and suffering. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Suffering happens when you refuse to accept what is happening inside you. When you argue with reality. When you tell yourself that you shouldn't feel what you're feeling. The moment you stop fighting pain, something surprising happens. It softens. It becomes clearer. It starts to speak. And pain always has something to say. Sometimes it's pointing to a boundary you've ignored for too long. Sometimes it's exposing a truth you didn't want to see. Sometimes it's reminding you that you've outgrown a version of your life that no longer fits. Pain is the signal that change is required. But here's the part most people miss. Pain doesn't come to destroy you. It comes to refine you. Fire doesn't exist to ruin gold. It exists to reveal it. Every time life applies pressure, it's asking a question. Who are you becoming right now? Are you shrinking, or are you paying attention? Are you numbing yourself, or are you learning? When you start to see pain differently, your relationship with it changes. You stop panicking, you stop running, you start listening. And listening is where power begins. This doesn't mean pain feels good. It doesn't mean you pretend it doesn't hurt. It means you stop labeling pain as failure. You stop telling yourself that something has gone wrong just because life feels heavy. Some of the strongest people you admire weren't forged in comfort. They were shaped in moments where quitting felt easier, where giving up felt logical, where life forced them to confront themselves. Pain didn't make them weaker. Avoiding it would have. Right now, if you're hurting, it doesn't mean you're behind. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you're losing. It means something inside you is changing. And the sooner you stop seeing pain as the enemy, the sooner you can begin turning it into power. The moment pain shows up, most people react the same way. They tense up, they panic, they ask how to make it stop. That reaction is natural, but it's also the reason pain ends up controlling so many lives. Because when you treat pain like a threat, you stop thinking clearly. You move into survival mode. And in survival mode, you don't learn, you only react. Here's the first rule that changes everything. Stop resisting pain. Start studying it. Pain is not punishment. It's information. Think about physical pain for a moment. If you touch something hot, the pain isn't there to hurt you. It's there to warn you. It tells you something needs your attention immediately. Emotional pain works the same way, but most people never learned how to read it. So instead of listening, they fight it. They distract themselves. They bury it under noise. They tell themselves they're fine. But pain doesn't disappear when ignored. It just finds other ways to speak. Through anxiety, through exhaustion, through anger that comes out at the wrong people, through a quiet numbness that settles in over time. When pain keeps repeating, it's usually because the message hasn't been understood yet. Studying pain doesn't mean overthinking it or drowning in it. It means observing it without judgment. Like a scientist, not a victim. You ask calm, honest questions. What exactly am I feeling right now? When did this start? What triggers it? What does it want me to notice? Most pain becomes overwhelming because it's vague. It feels like a dark cloud with no shape, but the moment you slow down and examine it, it becomes more specific, and specific pain is manageable. You might realize your pain is coming from unmet expectations, or from boundaries you never set, or from trying to live a life that no longer aligns with who you are. Pain often reveals patterns you've been repeating unconsciously, and this is where power starts to return to you. Because once you understand what pain is pointing to, you are no longer helpless. You may not control the situation completely, but you regain control over your response. And response is everything. Resisting pain keeps you stuck in the same loop. Studying it opens a door. There's a quiet strength in being able to sit with discomfort without immediately needing to escape it. That strength builds emotional intelligence. It sharpens awareness. It teaches patience. These are skills that compound over time. People who learn from pain don't become bitter. They become precise. They know what drains them and what energizes them. They recognize early warning signs instead of waiting for breakdowns. They make decisions based on clarity, not impulse. Pain stops feeling like chaos and starts feeling like guidance. This doesn't mean pain always has an easy answer. Sometimes the lesson is simply endurance. Sometimes it's acceptance. Sometimes it's letting go of something you thought you needed. But even then, understanding pain gives it a purpose, and purpose makes pain bearable. When you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to show me?" something shifts inside you. You move from resistance to awareness, from confusion to direction. Pain loses its power to scare you, because now, instead of feeling attacked by life, you're in conversation with it. Pain has a way of cutting through everything that doesn't matter. When life is comfortable, it's easy to stay distracted. You can tolerate things that don't align with you. You can live on autopilot. You can ignore small signs of dissatisfaction because nothing feels urgent. Comfort allows you to drift. Pain does the opposite. Pain forces clarity. When something hurts deeply, it exposes what you value, what you're attached to, and what you've been avoiding. You don't grieve what you don't care about. You don't feel anger where there was no investment. Pain shows you exactly where your heart is involved. This is why suffering, as uncomfortable as it is, often brings people face to face with their truth. You might discover that your pain isn't about the situation itself, but about what it represents. Maybe it's the fear of being alone, the fear of being unimportant, the fear of wasting your life. Pain pulls these fears to the surface because they've been quietly shaping your decisions all along. Loss reveals attachment. Frustration reveals expectation. Resentment reveals unspoken needs. When something in your life breaks, it doesn't just create pain, it reveals structure. It shows you what you were relying on for identity, safety, or meaning, and sometimes that realization is more painful than the loss itself. But this awareness is not meant to punish you. It's meant to free you. Many people live by borrowed values. They chase goals they never truly chose. They carry beliefs handed to them by family, culture, or fear. Pain disrupts that. It asks uncomfortable questions. Why does this hurt so much? What was I hoping for? What was I depending on to feel whole? These questions are difficult, but they are powerful. Because once you see what matters to you, you can choose more intentionally. You can stop investing energy into things that drain you and start protecting what truly counts. Pain often reveals misalignment. You might be living in a way that looks right on the outside but feels wrong on the inside. Pain is the signal that something needs to change, not because you're failing, but because you're evolving. There's also honesty in pain that comfort never provides. When you're hurting, you can't pretend as easily. Masks fall, excuses weaken. What's real rises to the surface. And in that honesty, you get a chance to rebuild your life on truth instead of illusion. Some attachments will be exposed as unhealthy. Some values will prove stronger than you realized. Some desires will fade, and others will sharpen. Pain sorts these things for you, whether you ask it to or not. The key is to pay attention. When you let pain show you what matters, it stops feeling meaningless. It becomes a compass. It points you toward what deserves your time, your effort, and your care. You don't come out of pain unchanged. But if you allow it to reveal your values instead of hardening your heart, you come out clearer. And clarity is one of the most powerful forms of strength a person can have. Pain often feels overwhelming, not because of what's happening, but because of how much control we think we've lost. When life hits hard, the mind goes into chaos. It tries to control everything at once: other people's actions, the past, the outcome, the timing. And when it can't, frustration turns into anxiety, anger, or helplessness. This is where suffering multiplies. Stoic wisdom draws a clear line that most people never stop to see. There are things you can control, and there are things you can't. Pain becomes power the moment you learn the difference. You cannot control what already happened. You cannot control how others behave. You cannot control sudden loss, rejection, or unexpected change. But you can control how you respond. You can control where you place your attention. You can control the meaning you assign to the experience. You can control the next small action you take. Most emotional chaos comes from fighting reality, from demanding that life should have unfolded differently, from replaying moments you can't undo and arguing with outcomes that already exist. That resistance drains energy and deepens pain. Control is not about forcing life to bend to you. It's about mastering yourself within whatever life brings. When you stop trying to control what's outside you, your nervous system begins to settle. Your thoughts slow down. Your emotions stop swinging as wildly. You regain stability not because the situation changed, but because you did. This doesn't mean suppressing emotion or pretending you don't care. It means choosing where your energy goes. Instead of obsessing over what you lost, you focus on what remains. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you ask, "What is required of me now?" That shift alone can transform pain. Stoic control is quiet strength. It's the ability to stay grounded when everything feels unstable. It's choosing discipline over panic, clarity over reaction. While emotions scream for immediate relief, control asks for long-term wisdom. You don't need to fix your entire life at once. You only need to control the next decision. Can you choose to breathe instead of spiraling? Can you choose rest instead of self-destruction? Can you choose one constructive action today, even if motivation is low? These small acts of control rebuild your sense of agency. They remind you that even in pain, you are not powerless. Releasing the rest is just as important. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means accepting that some things are beyond your influence and refusing to let them consume your inner world. Acceptance is not weakness, it's strategic strength. When you release what you can't control, you make space for what you can shape. Pain loses its grip when you stop wrestling with it and start managing yourself within it. Emotional chaos fades when you anchor yourself in responsibility rather than resentment. This rule teaches you something vital. Peace is not found in perfect circumstances, but in inner order. And once you establish that order, once you master your reactions instead of letting them master you, pain no longer controls you. You control how it shapes you. Pain has a strange habit. If you don't give it direction, it turns inward and destroys you. But if you give it structure, it becomes discipline. Most people try to escape pain. They numb it, distract themselves, or wait for it to pass. But pain doesn't disappear when it's ignored. It lingers. It leaks into habits, relationships, self-talk. Over time, it erodes self-respect. Discipline is what gives pain a purpose. Discipline doesn't mean punishment. It doesn't mean harsh routines or brutal self-control. At its core, discipline is simply doing what you said you would do, especially when you don't feel like it. And pain, when channeled correctly, becomes fuel for that commitment. Think about this. Pain already demands your attention. It already costs you energy. The question is whether that energy gets wasted in rumination and regret, or invested into actions that strengthen you. Every difficult emotion carries momentum. Anger, grief, frustration, they all generate intensity. Discipline teaches you how to redirect that intensity instead of letting it burn you alive. When life hurts, routines matter more than motivation. Motivation fades quickly, especially in suffering. Discipline stays because it's not dependent on mood. It's grounded in identity. You don't act because you feel good, you act because this is who you are becoming. Pain strips away illusions. It shows you how inconsistent you've been with yourself. And instead of feeling ashamed of that realization, you can use it as a turning point. Discipline begins with small, repeatable actions, not dramatic transformations, not overnight reinventions, just simple promises kept daily. Wake up at the same time, move your body, even gently, eat with intention, limit what drains you, create one moment each day where you choose growth over comfort. When you do this consistently, something subtle but powerful happens. You begin to trust yourself again. Self-respect grows not from grand achievements, but from reliability, from knowing that even in pain, you didn't abandon yourself.
Most people spend their entire lives trying to run from pain. They treat it like a warning sign, like proof that something is wrong with them. The moment life hurts, they assume they've failed. They ask, why me? They search for ways to numb it, distract from it, escape it. Pain becomes the reminder. Discipline becomes the response. There's also a deeper shift here. Discipline turns suffering into structure. It gives shape to chaos. When everything feels uncertain, routine provides stability. It tells your mind we are still in control of something. This sense of control is healing. Discipline doesn't eliminate pain, but it prevents pain from turning into self-destruction. It transforms emotional weight into mental strength. Over time, discipline changes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone broken by pain and start seeing yourself as someone forged by it. That identity shift is crucial. It's the difference between surviving and growing. And here's the truth most people miss. Discipline born from pain is stronger than discipline born from comfort. Comfort disappears easily. Pain teaches endurance. When you choose consistency in the middle of struggle, you build resilience that lasts. You're no longer waiting for life to get easier. You're becoming stronger regardless of circumstances. This rule is about reclaiming dignity, not by forcing happiness, not by denying hurt, but by showing up for yourself anyway. Pain gave you intensity. Discipline gives it direction. And when direction meets consistency, pain stops being a wound and starts becoming power. Pain has a way of telling the truth when nothing else can. Before pain enters your life, it's easy to live behind illusions. Illusions about who you are, about how life is supposed to work, about what you think you deserve, how people should treat you, or how the future should unfold. These beliefs feel solid when things are comfortable, but pain tests them and most of them don't survive. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. Pain strips away what is false. It removes the masks you didn't even realize you were wearing. The identity built on validation. The confidence borrowed from stability. The sense of self tied to roles, titles, relationships, or outcomes. When those things fall apart, it feels like you are falling apart too. But you're not. You're being revealed. Ego hates pain because ego depends on illusion. Ego wants certainty, control, and admiration. Pain threatens all of it. That's why suffering feels so disorienting. It forces you to confront who you are without the props. Who are you when approval disappears? Who are you when plans collapse? Who are you when life no longer follows the script you imagined? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. Pain exposes false identities, the version of you that existed only because circumstances allowed it. When that version breaks, you're left with something more raw, more honest. And while that honesty can feel frightening, it's also liberating. Illusions keep you small. Truth sets you free. Many people try to rebuild the same illusions after pain. They rush to replace what was lost. They chase the same patterns, the same expectations, the same narratives. But real growth happens when you allow pain to finish its work. Let it humble you. Let it quiet the ego. Let it challenge what you thought you knew. This doesn't mean losing self-worth. It means redefining it. Your value is no longer based on performance, image, or outcomes. It becomes rooted in character, awareness, and integrity. There is strength in this stripping process. When illusions fall away, so does unnecessary pressure. You stop pretending. You stop comparing. You stop chasing versions of life that were never aligned with you. Pain simplifies things. It narrows your focus to what actually matters. Truth over comfort. Depth over appearance. Substance over validation. Pain also exposes unrealistic expectations of yourself, of others, of life. Expectations that quietly set you up for disappointment. When they dissolve, resentment fades, acceptance grows, and with acceptance comes peace. This is not surrender. This is wisdom. Without illusions, you can build something real, a grounded sense of self. A life shaped by intention rather than fantasy. Pain clears the ground so something stronger can be built. Think of it as refinement. Fire doesn't destroy gold, it removes impurities. When pain strips you of illusions, it's not taking away your worth. It's removing what was never truly you. And what remains, though quieter, simpler, and more humble, is far more resilient. This rule teaches you that losing false identities is not loss at all. It's liberation. When ego fades, clarity rises. When illusion dissolves, truth emerges. When expectations fall, peace takes their place. Pain didn't break you here. It revealed you. And what's revealed is stronger than what was lost. Real strength is rarely loud. When pain enters your life, there's a temptation to explain yourself, to prove your suffering, to seek understanding, sympathy, or validation from others. And while connection matters, relying on external reassurance can quietly weaken you. Because the strongest growth often happens when no one is watching. Silence is not isolation. Silence is self-construction. Building inner strength means learning how to stand steady without applause, without constant feedback, without needing others to confirm that you're doing well. It's choosing to grow privately, patiently, and deliberately. Pain teaches this lesson naturally. When you're hurt, you realize how little control you have over how others perceive your struggle. Some will misunderstand you. Some won't care. Some will move on quickly. This realization can feel lonely, but it's also freeing. It pushes you inward, where real resilience is built. Quiet resilience is the ability to endure without broadcasting your wounds. It's showing up every day, even when no one is cheering. It's improving yourself without announcing it. It's healing without needing to be seen doing it. This kind of strength doesn't seek validation because it's rooted in self-respect. Silence creates space for focus. When you stop explaining yourself, your energy returns to you. You're no longer scattered, no longer reacting to opinions, no longer measuring progress by external responses. You start listening to your own rhythm. Your intuition sharpens. Your confidence becomes calm instead of defensive. This inner strength feels different. It's quieter, slower, more grounded. You stop trying to win approval and start building character Pain accelerates this process by removing distractions. When life strips things down, you see clearly what actually supports you. You discover that strength isn't about being tough all the time. It's about being steady. It's about regulating your emotions, honoring your boundaries, and choosing growth over noise. Silence also builds discipline. When no one is watching, excuses lose their power. There's no image to maintain, no audience to impress, just you and your choices. And in that space, you learn accountability. You learn to do the right thing because it aligns with who you're becoming, not because it looks good. This kind of resilience compounds. Over time, you notice that challenges don't shake you the same way. You respond instead of react. You observe instead of panic. You trust yourself because you've been there for yourself repeatedly. External validation becomes optional, not necessary. There's also dignity in quiet growth. You don't need to explain how far you've come. The way you move, speak, and carry yourself reflects it naturally. Strength becomes visible without being announced. Pain trains you for this silence. It teaches you how to sit with discomfort without escaping it, how to process emotion internally rather than projecting it outward, how to endure without bitterness. These are skills most people never fully develop because they avoid stillness. But in silence, something powerful forms. You build emotional endurance. You sharpen mental clarity. You develop trust in yourself. This doesn't mean cutting yourself off from others. It means not depending on them to feel whole. It means choosing inner alignment over external approval. Quiet resilience doesn't rush. It doesn't perform. It doesn't demand recognition. It simply grows. And one day, you realize that the pain that once made you feel small taught you how to stand tall, without noise, without validation, without fear. This rule reminds you that strength doesn't need to be loud to be real. Sometimes the most powerful transformation happens in silence. Pain leaves marks. Some are visible, most are not. But every scar, physical or emotional, tells a story of survival. The problem is, many people look at their scars as proof that something went wrong. They see pain as evidence of failure, weakness, or bad luck. This final shift is about changing that interpretation completely. Pain is not proof that you're broken. Pain is proof that you lived, endured, and adapted. Growth is never clean. It doesn't happen without friction. Muscles grow by tearing. Character grows the same way. If you have experienced pain, it means you were stretched beyond who you used to be. Something challenged you enough to force change. Scars are not reminders of what hurt you. They are evidence of what you survived. When you reframe pain this way, its emotional weight changes. Instead of dragging you backward, it grounds you. It reminds you that you've already faced difficulty and didn't disappear. You adapted. You learned. You continued. This matters because the mind often forgets resilience. During hard moments, we convince ourselves that we're fragile, unprepared, incapable. But pain contradicts that story. Every difficult chapter you've lived through is proof that you're stronger now than you were before it happened. You didn't come out unchanged. You came out more aware. Pain teaches boundaries. It clarifies priorities. It forces maturity where comfort allowed delay. Even the pain you didn't understand at the time shaped how you think, choose, and respond today. When you view pain as proof of growth, shame dissolves. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? You start saying, this is part of who I've become. That shift builds confidence, not loud confidence, but quiet certainty. You trust yourself more because you've seen what you can endure. Fear loses some of its power because you've already been through difficulty and survived it. Scars also teach humility. They remind you that strength isn't about being untouched. It's about being tested and still standing. This humility keeps you grounded. It prevents arrogance and builds empathy. You understand others better because you know what it feels like to struggle. Pain also becomes a reference point. When new challenges arise, you no longer panic the same way. You remember past pain and realize, I've been here before. That memory doesn't make things easy, but it makes them manageable. You begin to measure progress differently, not by how little pain you feel, but by how well you respond to it, by how quickly you regain balance, by how consciously you choose growth instead of collapse. This reframing turns pain into evidence, not an enemy. Every scar becomes a marker on your timeline, a sign that you kept going when quitting would have been easier, a reminder that your capacity is larger than you once believed. Pain didn't just pass through your life, it shaped it, and that shaping has value. When you stop hiding your scars internally or emotionally, you reclaim power from them. You don't relive the pain, you honor the strength it revealed. This rule completes the transformation. Pain was once something that controlled you. Now it becomes something that confirms you. Not as someone untouched by life, but as someone forged by it. You are not behind because you've suffered. You are ahead because you've grown. And when you look at your past through this lens, pain no longer defines you by what it took away. It defines you by what it built.